and welcome to GameSack. This time we're talking about arcade games. You know, Dave, arcades were kind of like the movie theaters of gaming. You know, a lot of games would appear in the arcade first and then be ported to the home where people could enjoy and love them forever.
You're exactly right, Joe.
Absolutely.
The arcades were a wondrous, awesome place. I used to love going there because I could look forward to a game that I really liked there to come home on the home console.
Yeah.
But not all games came to the home console.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about today, are games that were released in the arcade but never made it out of there. So,
yeah. So, unfortunately, we don't have all the arcade boards to the games we're going to talk about today. So we're going to have to resort to emulation. It's something that we don't like to do. We like to show you games running on the actual hardware. But, you know, emulation is the only way that a lot of people can even play these games anymore. So
yeah, the emulation is a dirty word anyways. But we do have a lot of games to take a look at, so we should really get going.
Gangbusters by Konami is a cops and robbers overhead run and gun. You take control of some freaky-haired punk cops roaming the deadly streets to catch criminals. If you catch a criminal in the act, you can tow him behind you. Once you get to a police van, you submit all of the prisoners you've caught in order to send to jail to earn points. Pretty cool concept. Of course, all the other criminals you simply shoot dead, no jail for them. I'm wondering why you're even bothering to catch some criminals in the first place. Why not just shoot them all? I mean, there are 100 of them shooting at you. When you shoot an eligible criminal, he starts crying for help. What's going on with this? Is he asking you for help, or is he calling for help from his buddies? The graphics are kind of bland in this one, and overall so is the game.
Yeah, and you can say the same about the music too. This game could definitely use a strafe button, but overall I really didn't care for this one. I'm pretty sure I would have passed the game up in the arcades for something much better.
The game gets really difficult in the upper levels too. The brilliantly named Psychon Oscar is a very interesting little game. Basically, it's a run and gun with a selective power-up system. Looking at the game, it kind of makes me think that they took Turrican and Gradius and smashed them into one game. It's pretty damn hard though. You can't take a lot of damage before you die, and when you do die, you get sent back. This game wants to challenge you as a player rather than being all about the quarters. Okay, I guess it wants your quarters too, as you will be spending a lot of them to learn this game. But once you get powered up a bit, it really feels like you're unstoppable, but if you die, and you will, you start out really weak again. To be honest, if I saw this game in an arcade, I'd probably overlook it. I think that a lot of people might. It's a shame too, as it's pretty fun for the most part, and the challenge only helps make it more addicting.
I like this game. Lots of solid action, and the Gradius style upgrade system works well. I'm sure I would have dumped at least $10 into this game over its lifetime in the arcade.
Devastators by Konami is a run-and-gun game, I guess.
Yeah, right. It's actually more of a walking gun.
Basically, you take control of a Rambo wannabe and run into the screen, defeating your enemies and progressing into new stages. This game was in a convenience store near my high school, so I played it a few times there. At the time, I was impressed with all of the scaling going on. This was well before systems like the Super Nintendo or the Sega CD came out, so hopefully you can see how I thought this was kinda neat. Still, it doesn't really compare with the earlier Sega arcade games, which had much better scaling. It hasn't really aged very well. The graphics are kind of bland, the music and sounds aren't very memorable, and the game moves slower than tepid fudge, as Dave would say. The game could have been better paced, I feel. And your guy can only shoot about 10 to 20 feet ahead of him.
Yeah, and it looks like he's shooting at the ground, too.
You do have secondary weapons like grenades and also a rocket launcher, which can be used when you see the crosshairs on an enemy vehicle. I think it never came home because only the Neo Geo could handle it, and Konami didn't make games for the Neo Geo. Oh well, fine by me.
It's a nice effort by Konami, but like Joe says, it didn't age well. It's just too slow and not very exciting.
G.I. Joe is a spiritual sequel to Devastators, and it's also by Konami, of course. As you can see, they vastly improved the graphics and gameplay here. The pace is much faster, the scrolling is now automatic and it keeps the action coming. You now have a crosshair to use to shoot, and you also use that to pick up power-ups and whatnot. It kind of reminds me of Dynamite Duke with a crosshair action, but instead you're going forward instead of side to side. Anyway, you can choose from 4 Joes, but Snake Eyes really doesn't look anything like the Snake Eyes I remember. Plus, he even speaks.
Yo, Joe!
You know, I'm not a huge fan of G.I. Joe, and you don't have to be to enjoy this game. All you have to do is keep your crosshairs pointed at the enemies and pull the trigger. It's just fun and mind-numbing. I like it.
There are only 3 stages in this game, but the first 2 are pretty long. You just keep going and going. See that building back there? We'll eventually get to it. See, now we're closer. Take a moment to notice how tall it is. Now we're going inside, and up, and up, and up. Wow, sure a lot taller inside than outside. Now what the hell's going on here? There are boats and splashes in the dirt, and I guess that's water on the ceiling? Yeah, I think that's supposed to be the other way around. This is one of the reasons I don't like emulation. You just can't trust it to give you the true experience. But overall, this is a great game with cool scaling visuals and cool music. It never came home because I don't know any home system at the time that could handle this, plus it's extremely short. It would have made a great Saturn game for $10 though. G.I. Joe did appear on the NES in a couple of games, but as you can see here, they're side-scrolling platform games and not a port of the arcade.
A fun game for sure, and it feels a lot different than anything on a home console.
Here's Superman the arcade game by Taito. To be honest, I don't think there has ever been a truly great Superman game. Some may have been decent, but never truly inspired. This arcade version is no exception. It's almost as if they didn't really care about it when they were making it. You basically punch and kick enemies in the air or on the ground and then take off flying upwards and punch and kick more enemies. You fight a quick boss and then you find yourself playing a horizontal shooter where you shoot down floating rocks with your eyeball lasers. Then wash, rinse, and repeat. There's not a whole lot of variety here with the same enemies again and again, and they have no problem defeating Superman. While you're doing this, you must listen to a horrible version of the movie soundtrack as rendered by Taito's awful sounding arcade board. The graphics are pretty bland too. Just another mediocre game by Taito, of which there are many.
Yeah, this game sucks. It's very bland and the action is too repetitive to be enjoyable. Tecmo Knight is a game that I loved in the arcade. I have fond memories of playing this game a lot with a good friend. No, it wasn't Joe, because he's just an average friend. The truth hurts sometimes, Joe, I know.
Oh yeah? Well, ask your girlfriend what or who she was doing back when you were busy playing Tecmo Knight. Then we'll see who's average.
You're dirty and low. God. Anyways, at the time I was into gory games like this and even the super awesome Time Killers. It's still a very enjoyable game as you run around beating the hell out of everything until it turns into a bloody pulp or loses its head. You can ride 3 different beasts in this game, a tiger, a giant, and a dragon. You know, I always like the giant the best because you can jump on top of enemies' shoulders and pound their heads. A straightforward beat 'em up with a special appearance by King Kong every now and again. Once you beat up King Kong's hand, he goes away.
Well yeah, he has to grow a new one so he can appear later on.
The music is pretty good. Some good melodies for the most part, but also there are some utterly forgettable melodies. This game must have consumed at least $30 of my parents' money back then.
Does this kind of look familiar to you right here? Yeah, I'm not gonna really elaborate on that though. This game is crazy hard in single player mode because it sends you back when you die. Playing it with 2 players is really the only way to get anywhere. Overall, it's a decent game, but not likely something I would have played more than once in an actual arcade. Macross Plus by Band Presto is a vertical shoot 'em up.
Oh boy, another shooter.
Yeah, I kinda get that feeling here too. You choose one of 3 different ships which shoot bullets, have their own unique special weapon, and can lock onto enemy weak points similar to Galactic Attack. However, this game is nowhere near as good as Galactic Attack. It's not bad, but there's just really nothing special about it. I do like some of the graphics like these layered rocks which kinda remind me of Thunderblade or the scaling ground when the boss takes off for the sky. The music isn't bad at all, but it's pretty quiet. Other than that, it's a completely average shooter that's fairly relentless because it really wants your quarters.
Home consoles definitely didn't need any more of these. I really can't tell the difference between this and a lot of the other shooters out there. Although I'm certainly not looking very hard. Shooter fans will like it, but I'd pass it up in the arcade. Yeah, Joe, I'm not so sold on Macross, you know? I mean, it just looks like another shooter to me. So
Yeah, well.
I'd like to see, personally, a lot more beat-em-ups like Tecmo Knight. I thought that was great.
More beat 'em ups?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we can definitely do that, but we're going to shove in a few other games in there too, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Let's do it. Cadillacs and Dinosaurs by Capcom is a beat 'em up. You'll like it, Dave. You wanted to see more beat 'em ups. Here you go. It's based on a comic book or a TV show or something of that nature. I've never seen either, but you can select from what I'm guessing are 4 of the characters from that series. You'll notice many similarities to Final Fight, not only because it's a beat 'em up. The game seems to borrow many assets from the Final Fight series that have been reworked for this game. From the characters to the attacks to even the bricks in this wall seem to have come from Final Fight. One character looks and moves very similar to Cody, for example. You know, it's okay if Capcom wants to rip themselves off. This game is good enough to overlook that. I like how you have to fight dinosaurs every once in a while. Once you smack some sense into them, they turn green and go on their merry way.
Who knew a dinosaur could be calmed down just by beating it up a bit? Capcom knows way more than me, apparently.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. The graphics in this game are pretty good.
Don't forget the music, Joe, which is actually quite good. It's not the normal Capcom synthesized trumpet arrangement. There's quite a few good melodies in here.
Geez, Dave, I wasn't gonna forget the music, okay? It's good. It's good stuff. But I really don't know why this never came out to the home system. A game called Cadillacs and Dinosaurs did come home to the Sega CD, but as you can see here, it's an FMV driving game that I guess is based on the same universe or something, but it has nothing to do with this arcade game. And it's nowhere near as fun either.
I really enjoy this game quite a bit. I like the different stages, characters, and enemies.
Gate of Doom by Data East is an interesting isometric style game. You choose one of 4 characters, wander around, defeat enemies and the such, but it seems to stand out amongst other arcade games simply because of its perspective. It does kind of take a bit of getting used to. You have a main attack and you can supplement your abilities by picking stuff up, which can make you move faster, have more strength or defense, and cool stuff like that. When the gauge near the edge of the screen fills up, you can use various magic until the gauge runs out. I like the floating Medusa head, which turns enemies into stone. The graphics are fairly good in this one.
I like this game. The music is pretty good and I like how it develops through the levels. You do kind of flail your weapon around and hope it hits something in its path. It really doesn't give you a great feeling of control, but oddly enough it works.
Spider-Man the video game is an arcade exclusive by Sega. Sega made a lot of Spider-Man games back in the day, each of them being different. This one starts out as a fairly standard beat-em-up without anything really too special about it.
Yeah, where are my spider webs?
Well, after a bit, the action zooms out and becomes more of a platform game, which is almost like a poor man's Rolling Thunder. Here's where you can shoot some webs in a limited capacity. Get past this portion and you zoom back into the beat-em-up action.
What's up with the graphics? They're not very appealing and it looks like some of the sprites have been blown up to huge proportions.
Oh, so when there's blocky graphics all over a Super Nintendo game it's okay, but not a Sega arcade game? I see how it is.
That's a damn different thing from you. That's completely different and you know it.
Yeah, well, I generally do agree with you about the lackluster graphics, Dave, but I've got to admit I'm a sucker for scaling like this, especially back during that time.
I like that effect too, but it's not enough to keep me interested.
Well, one thing that's almost interesting is that the more quarters you put in, the more life you get. So you can have a huge amount of life instead of simply continuing again and again, though you can do that too if you want to switch characters. This game is okay, not tremendously fun, but definitely worth a try. Not one of Sega's best efforts.
I would have saved my quarters for something else.
Willow is an action platformer by Capcom based on the movie. You run around shooting things and gathering money to spend at a shop to improve your abilities and stuff like that. You eventually even get to be Val Kilmer, and he can slash with his sword and jump around level to level like the monkey he is. I've never seen the movie, so I can't really say how close the game represents it, but since Val Kilmer is in here, I imagine he's probably in the movie as well.
Well, I saw the movie a bunch of times. It was highly enjoyable back when it came out. The game follows the movie pretty closely. You even get to see cutscenes with all the characters.
This game is pretty fun, and it's also extremely tough. Even after you power up your weapon, regular enemies can take dozens of hits before they die. If you want to get anywhere, it's really just best to plow through them as there are a lot of checkpoints in each stage. You're on your own for the boss battles though. The graphics are great and the music and sound are definitely fitting as well. The graphical style and action kinda reminds me a little of Ghouls and Ghosts, and the shops definitely remind me of Forgotten Worlds. That's cool because I love both of those games. But when all is said and done, Willow doesn't quite live up to either of them.
I really like this game. The control is great and the graphics are really colorful and well drawn, giving the game a great atmosphere. I enjoy the game for the most part, but the sound effects are too shrill, just the way Capcom likes it.
Metamorphic Force is a beat-em-up by Konami. You take control of people who have the ability to turn into animals to increase their powers. In fact, it's almost like a super turbocharged Altered Beast reformatted as a beat-em-up. I really like the pacing of this game. It's fast and fun. You don't stand around forever fighting enemies who have life bars over 2 miles long, though there aren't really that many different kinds of enemies in the game. At least the game knows I have a short attention span, and it respects that by keeping things moving for the most part. A lot of items are dropped by some monkey-looking guy, and sometimes you take off in a super frenzy, damaging everything on screen. There are only 2 buttons, an attack and a jump, but you can do a special move if you press both of them together, though it takes 5 points off of your life. There are 5 stages in the game and you get 1 life per credit. I think the graphics are great and I love the music. This would have made a great Saturn or PlayStation game. There's really no excuse for this to remain only in the arcades.
Yeah, what the hell? Why didn't this game get a home console port? The game is very fun and it does have some really well-drawn graphics. There's lots of variety in the enemies and even in the backgrounds. The music is just how I like it. Good melodies with screaming guitars here and there.
R-Type Leo by IREM is a horizontal shooter just like all other R-Types. Well, actually not exactly like all other R-Types. This one is very upbeat and has a faster pace than the other R-Type games. The first thing I noticed about this game was how smooth the control was. Even at your ship's slowest speed, it feels very responsive. I really like that. You collect similar weapons to other R-Type games, but gone is your droid thingy, which you could position either in front of or behind your ship. New are 2 options which can be charged to attack nearby enemies when you hold the fire button down. It definitely makes it feel more like an offshoot to the series rather than an official R-Type game, but it's still R-Type through and through. It may seem like an easy game at first, but it's not. Now, while I didn't die until I got midway through Stage 3, I found myself going through the exact same learning curve I went through with other R-Type games. You know, it's every bit as satisfying figuring out the patterns and finally getting into a new area. I really like the challenge here. The game really does give you everything you need in any given situation, and you can only really blame yourself if you die. You can't just pop another quarter in to continue your way to the ending. The graphics are really good with multi-layered backgrounds that are a treat to look at. The enemy sprites are great too. However, some enemies and bosses aren't quite as cool as R-Type 1's organic designs. I would have enjoyed this game very much on the Saturn or Dreamcast. This is definitely one of the best horizontal arcade shooters I've played.
Yep, definitely a good game here. I felt like I had a great atmosphere and I was drawn in by the great graphics, music, and large player and enemy sprites. I would have definitely played this between a couple of slices of pizza at Showbiz Pizza, or maybe even between fights at Chuck E. Cheese's. Golden Axe: The Revenge of Death Adder proves that Sega were a bunch of retards in the mid to late 90s. They had this totally kick-ass Golden Axe game eating quarters in arcades all over the world, and what do? They give us Rusted Axe the Duel. Oh my god! Yeah, and although Golden Axe the Duel was an arcade game, it's a one-on-one fighter instead of an awesome beat-em-up like Revenge of Death Adder is.
They could have brought them both home, not just one of them.
They chose the damn wrong one, I'll tell you that. I can't believe the stupidity in not bringing this game to the Saturn. It would have been a perfect fit and the Saturn would have had a true Golden Axe game. Alright, now that I'm feeling better, I can praise the game for what it is. As you can see, this is just another installment in the truly awesome Golden Axe series. There's nothing drastically new here, but that's okay.
Well, the characters are all new. I guess the dwarf is in here, but he rides piggyback on some big guy's shoulder. There's also a centaur chick with a horse body and legs which magically disappear whenever she rides one of the many insect creatures in the game. Now, how does that work? Where does all that go?
It has great control and you can do this awesome team-up move on enemies.
Yeah, it causes a ton of damage.
A ton! There's new magic spells like this awesome skull-breathing death breath that turns enemies into stone. There are no longer multiple levels of magic, but if you collect enough potions, you can use the magic as long as you can. I like the imaginative enemies and the really cool levels.
I don't know, some of the enemies seem fairly repetitive to me.
Well, yeah, but they're really cool though. The only thing that I don't think is as good as other Golden Axe games is the music. Don't get me wrong, it's still good here, so I'm not going to be complaining.
But not being able to play this game on a home console is definitely worth complaining about.
Thanks for thinking of your fans at home, Sega. You asswipes. And so those are a few of the very many games that never got brought to the home console.
Yeah.
And Joe, looking at the ones we've talked about, what were one or two of your favorites?
Well, you know, Dave, I'm going to have to say Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder. I mean, it's from Sega, it's awesome, it would have been great fun to play at home. And I'm going to have to say R-Type Leo, because that one was awesome. If it had been faithfully translated to a home console, I would have loved the hell out of it, you know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want a bad translation.
Oh,
but anyway, what would you like to see most at home out of what we talked about?
Well, of course, Golden Axe, The Revenge of Death Adder is the top of my list also. I mean, that game just screams awesomeness. I'm also going to put in there Cadillacs and Dinosaurs.
Interesting.
Yeah, it definitely. Yeah, I thought Capcom did a really, really good job with that beat 'em up. I had a really good time with it.
Yeah, it's not as good as R-Type Leo in my opinion, but I see where you're coming from. So, anyway, what games that were arcade-only releases would you like to see us talk about in the future? If we cover the subject again, let us know.
And we'll see you next time. All right, Joe, great episode, man. It's really put me in the mood to play some arcade games, so I'm going to head on down there right now. So.
Okay, have fun.
But I was wondering if maybe I could just borrow some money because I don't get paid till tomorrow.
Oh, fine. Have an arcade game on the Joe Meister.
With a quarter?
Yeah.
I'm not having anything on the Joe Meister. Have you heard of inflation?
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Sorry. My bad.
Prices
Prices have gone up in the last 20 or so years.
Yeah, they really have. And you know what? They've even gone up a lot more than $1 is going to pay for. I can't do anything with this. You got some money there.
Yeah, there you go.
Share it a little bit. Jeez. $20 is good, but you know what? That's still only gave me one gameplay. And, you know, I'm a great gamer and all, but I'd have to 1cc that thing, which I can't do. So maybe if I could just grab this thing right here, and I'll see you later.